All right, first game back here after a summer in France, and questions for Emma. Go ahead.
Hello, Emma.
Hello.
Lakin Lippman with Fox Sports. You've obviously gotten your career here off to a very hot start, and I know you guys are looking ahead to 2027 as the next major tournament. But I was wondering if you could kind of just take us through, like, what does between now and then look like? Are there benchmarks that you need to hit? Like, I don't know, what do you break the next 3 years up into chunks? Like, we must achieve this by this point, this by this point. Just what's basically going to look like between now and then?
Well, I think I've gone through a process of internally, we've done a review of the Olympics. That's quite an extensive, comprehensive report in and around not just everybody's experience at the Olympics, but most importantly, where the missing gaps are. And for us to be world leading in anything and everything we do, we have to know what our next steps are. So the first part was the review. The second part is the development of the 27-28 strategy, which will take between now and probably mid-December to finish, at which point we'll present at the WNT and YNT Futures Conference in LA. That will be when the WNT plays side by side with the best of, could be an age group outside of the 23s plus the 23s plus the 20 to identify the next set of players. There's going to be some programming next year for under 23s in terms of a couple of opportunities and trying to create or close the gap between under 20s and the senior team. I think the rest of this year is very much celebrating this victory tour of the players, plus recognise the achievements of those that have performed really well in the NWSL. And then the England and Netherlands camp is one which is a great opportunity for us to play a top-tier teams. And then the new year, like setting benchmarks for me, they will be set out by the strategy, and it won't be until January that we launch that for me to be able to answer that question in its entirety.
Cool. Jeff?
Emma, Jeff
Hi,
Kassouf, ESPN. What's been the message to the group now that you've gotten back in, you've had them in, and you have that celebration that you mentioned, but you're also sort of looking forward? How have you sort of communicated those priorities to them?
Yes, I've communicated the priorities to them, but knowing we've got 3 games in this period, a tight turnaround in between sort of a very congested NWSL schedule, I know this will be an opportunity for me to see players, and I will take that opportunity. So I've made that clear to everybody that in an ideal world, no one will play more than 2 full games in this, unless there's an injury situation or I have to think differently. But I've assured the NWSL clubs I will work towards that. So there will be debuts over this block. I've also communicated to the players exactly what I've expressed to you. And for us, we, of course, our next steps are focusing on 27 and 28. So I see the footballing year ending after the England-Netherlands camp, and I think it's a look to the future, starting with the Futures camp.
Good. Should we go online? Let's go to Jonathan Tannewald. Go ahead, man.
Thanks. Aaron, Emma, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can.
Thanks. You mentioned the not wanting to play, ideally, players more than 2 games each out of the 3. And I wondered for the Europe-based contingent in particular, with the travel time that they'll have afterward and the turnaround, does that make it more likely that their 2 are the first 2?
I think the bigger issue is that NWSL have games on the Friday. In Europe, they don't play till the Sunday. So the bigger challenge are the 4 teams that are playing NWSL games on the Friday, which, as we know, is far from ideal. And these are conversations I've had with NWSL. Player welfare's critical, and we all, of course, know what the FIFA windows are. So hopefully in the future, that we will work towards not having scheduled games on a Friday after a Wednesday, international game. But like I said, we're working hard with NWSL in our communication to plan for the future, and say that.
All right. Let's go to Andrew Jones. Go ahead, Andrew. Hold on. There we go. Go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Aaron, as always. First, Emma, just wanted to say, so Jaden Shaw had her birthday on Sunday in terms of turning 20, and you talked about her growth in her game. Talk about just what you've seen from her throughout the course of this season in the WSL. And since it's Halloween week, and we saw the candy that Harry and also the players are getting, do you have favorite candy by any chance?
I didn't catch the name of the player at the beginning.
Jaden.
Jaden?
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm on a health kick at the minute, so they're banned from my world at the minute. So no, I do not have a favourite candy because that's not on my list at the minute. I just gather them up for Harry, and Harry's favourite candy is Nerds. He's definitely grabbed a few of them out of the bowl, but an hour later, it wasn't, as we know, those of us with children, that was a lively 1 or 2 hours after that.
And Jaden's progress.
Jaden, first of all, I'm so delighted she's fit, healthy, back in camp. She's in a good place. I think, first of all, she's so excited to be fit and being around the group after the Olympics. And I think the season ending probably comes at the worst possible point for her, but that's all part of her learning and growth. And I think she needs, at the end of this season, a reset and then go again. And she's where I'd expect most 20-year-olds to be. She's in exactly the right place.
Andrew, I think her birthday's next month, by the way, but we'll celebrate it then. Steve Goff, go ahead.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, what would you like to see from the team in this camp that maybe you did not see in the Olympics, or maybe did not see in enough abundance at the Olympics? Thanks.
Well, first of all, we've done a review with the players of, what our strengths are as a team. We've also worked through what the opportunities could be for us. Is the first thing. I think the reality is there will be, when we play a team, I put together a team on the field that have been playing together over a period of time. I think it's easy for us to evolve tactically, which we're trying to do, than it will be when all of a sudden I make multiple changes to the lineup, because I don't think I will necessarily see those tactical developments this camp because I'm giving so many first looks to everyone. But that, I think, will make the games choppy in many ways, because being able to apply everything I'm asking them to do in their first camps, I think will be really, really challenging. So I'm not expecting everything to be perfect in this camp, but I do expect the group that was playing in the Olympics that have been exposed to a tactical schema, that when they are placed together, that they show the tactical developments that we've been working through this week.
Let's go to Steph Young. Go ahead, Steph.
Thanks. Hi, Coach. As you just mentioned, you are expecting these games to be kind of choppy. There's going to be changes in the lineups to expect. Just wondering, in that context, the balance you're trying to find between being able to evaluate those the newer, the younger players, knowing that it is going to be choppy, and your ability to evaluate them, within systems, knowing that these things might be shifting, especially as you're trying to plan for that 27-28 strategy.
I think one of the really hardest things to do at international level is we always want to see more players, but the more changes you make, the more broken up the play becomes, because football, like any sport, is about building connections and building relationships. And you can't do that if the relationships change game in, game out. So if you've got a completely different back four or whatever that might be. So I think it is difficult at international level to have maybe some of the volume of changes that sometimes the fans really want to see. However, we are not competing to qualify for a tournament just yet. And this is the perfect window to be able to give those looks to players that will start to form a group, particularly after Christmas, that we will start to build around. And I think this window plus the January window are the two big windows in the immediate plan to be able to assess what other players from outside the current playing pool are going to be candidates to be involved with what we're looking to do.
You got another one, Lakin? Go ahead.
Pochettino actually said recently that he hopes to mirror your success with the men's national team. And I know you guys are friends and have a relationship. And I was wondering, like, how often is he picking your brain? And do you think it serves the U.S. Soccer Federation to have their senior national team coaches be able to have a relationship, be friends, and maybe bounce ideas or share ideas with each other?
Well, I think first of all, he's just had his first camp, and as that finishes, I have mine. But there certainly are plans to try and see each other between the next camps for us both. In fact, we're both in Portland next week. I went to his house a couple of weeks ago, or prior to his camp. So there is a lot of time together. We have been sharing information, and I know Jesus too. So we're connecting the relationships with my staff and his staff. And yeah, I think it's extremely helpful to be able to share ideas and talk about the many facets of our job. It's not always in coaching. Sometimes we're both club coaches coming to international level, and what those differences are and how you have to organise yourself and how do you manage so many different things and multiple projects when you might have people working remotely because of the travel implications. Let's say, I don't know, if Denise going to a game there, Stuart over there, but we've got to keep up a consistent process to be able to communicate. So I think sharing best practice in the short term is probably what will dominate our conversations. But listen, we're football coaches and we like to talk about football. We like to talk about the American DNA, and as you know, two people who are really passionate about developing players, that there'll be many, many moments. And yeah, of course, I think it does help having a relationship.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I realize I risk this maybe being the 27-28 plan answer again, but I'm wondering maybe if you look outside of the team and you look at some of the competition, when you look at the international game specifically, how are you seeing that evolve when you look at even maybe the top opponents that you expect to be sort of contenders alongside yourself?
I think one of the biggest things, and I said it before and I'll say it again, there's parity in the game, in the world game. So what will be our advantage? And the realities are that it's extremely difficult to create some of the more traditional advantages, whether that be numerical superiority, whether that be technical advantages, for example. You have to find a different way to be able to do that. And that's the first thing. So we have identified those things. I think you know me well enough. I just don't talk about them because I'm a competitor and I don't want to give it away. But what I'd say is that we've articulated very carefully to the players what we think those advantages will be, but also, as I said, built on our super strengths. We know what they are. We know what the opportunities are. Now it's a little bit of time together, the execution of that, and then a deepening of the player pool, because the diversity, i.e. competition that comes into that, will start to add the variety to our game that I think is essential if you want to be at the very, very top. Hence the reason my biggest goal is broadening the talent pool. I want to be able to broaden it, but also give exposures to players within the 23 category to give international experience. Because going from the under 20 to the seniors is like a huge jump. So working really hard with Tracy Kevins, the YNT technical head of development, around not just programming, but pathway to methodology, to shared resourcing and ideas and joining up. In fact, we are about to advertise the under 20 head coach position this week, an assistant coach position in the national team. plus other positions in Y&T, and it makes sense for us to do them together, side by side. So my whole purpose is joining things up, and on top of that, make us world leading in the female 360 space. That is like my absolute goal. So whenever the federation is done with me, my legacy, I hope, will be some of those things that I'll put in place from top to bottom, and putting females at the centre and the heart of everything we do.